Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the WCW Saturday Night Review Series for the 8th of August, 1992. Historic show here, probably one of the most historic of the era. I'd definitely say the most historic of 1992 for this program, as Ron Simmons footage of his win of the World Championship is shown here. So Ron Simmons is your new champion. Bill Watts hypes the championship win and the dedication it took to get there from here in the beginning of things. Also, Mark Canterbury, who I believe is Henry O. Godwin in a couple of years, kicks off with Dustin Rhodes as the opening contest here. Rhodes, of course, protected and nurtured by his father, Dusty Rhodes, who's still part of the promotion at the time, I believe, one of the main bookers. And there is an inset from Greg Valentine and Dick Slater as a tag team, telling Rhodes to get a partner and get a clue. Rhodes manages to hit a couple of fireman's carries, some arm bars, and shoulder tackles. Rhodes still only about 3 or 4 years into his career, so not exactly, writing any novels, but, deep arm drags and the like. Canterbury, of course, not exactly having a bunch of experience. Matter of fact, doing the enhancement work here to get experience. Rains down on Rhodes pretty aggressively here. Rhodes comes back with a lariat and eventually sets up the Bulldog, gets the victory from that perspective. And then we go to more highlights. Highlights of, in fact, the run-in of Sting on Rick Rude. Jake Roberts comes in from the crowd, lays Sting out with a steel chair, hits a couple of DDTs on Sting on the steel chair. Barry Windham, Rick Steamboat, and others make their way out to try to rectify the situation as Sting is taken out in a neck collar. I actually remember getting into very aggressively. We must have gotten cable by this point because I remember being quite excited with the idea of Jake Roberts showing up. I was young, starting middle school, and Jake Roberts as a heel had excited me at WrestleMania 8 a few months before, so to see him show up on WCW was interesting to say the very least. Roberts gets fined, but rather than getting him arrested, we see Sting eventually, in the weeks to come, saying sanction him to fight. We go to the Baltimore Arena, Baltimore, Maryland, which was the site of these things. A random draw. Rick Rude comes out complaining about not being in the draw. The winner of the draw, because Sting can't compete because he was laid out by Rick Rude earlier, of course, is Ron Simmons. Simmons versus Vader in the middle of the card. Simmons, of course, the first Black World Heavyweight Champion. Um, Vader starts with a series of shots, punches and kicks, but Simmons not backing down, gets a back suplex. The whole match is not shown in clipped form. Simmons takes several shots and gets a scoop slam, power slam to get the victory. We see him celebrating in the back. Again, Bill Watts comes back and is very excited. Simmons promises to be, post-match, a fighting champion, giving Vader rematches, getting ready for Rick Rude, getting ready for Sting, and just about anybody else that he can. Tony Schiavone looks really young in this scenario. We then go to seeing a Dan Spivey match. Spivey doesn't really accomplish much here. Kicks to the midsection, kind of teasing the Waylon Mercy character of later, the crazy eyes, the whole bit. Punches and kicks by Spivey. Spivey doesn't do a heck of a lot. Does manage to hit a huge lariat en route to his eventual victory, followed by a kind of a chokeout type maneuver. And needless to say, he is not a guy that anybody wants to mess with. Junkyard Dog up next. This is one of the bringbacks by Bill Watts that was a really bad idea. Curtis Hughes along with the dog. Dog actually hits a drop kick along the in the middle here, and it's not the enhancement match is just bowling shoe ugly. If you value your eyes or any part of your being, do not watch this match. The enhancement talent taking a bunch of bumps for both guys. Hughes comes in, hits as many shots as he can, hits diving headbutt, and eventually the dog's team wins, but it's ugly. Tracy Smothers is up next. He is not willing to take too many steps backwards. Smothers and Van Hammer are your next combatants here. Smothers does a brilliant job of selling for Van Hammer over the next several minutes. Van Hammer, of course, still being pushed as a major deal. Has the look, but doesn't have very much else going on for himself, in all honesty and sincerity. It is clear that he is interesting, to say the very least, in terms of his athletic continual prowess. Gets a roll up on Smothers along the way, doesn't get all he wants on that. Smothers cuts him off with some shoulder tackles in the corner of the ring. Tip up leads to a shoulder breaker by Van Hammer. Van Hammer not too terribly unimpressive in terms of power. What doesn't link together is Van Hammer's selling nor his match pacing. But to look at, he's pretty. And at the time, they were still coming off the 80s where, size and look in WWF anyway, and by default WCW, who's their main competitor, mattered more than anything else. Van Hammer hits a leaping dropkick and the slingshot suplex that Tully Blanchard made famous in order to get the victory there. Then we go to another enhancement match, which is Dick Slater here. Not exactly Dick Slater and Greg Valentine against a couple of enhancement guys. Nothing to write home about. Ian Weston and Italian Stallion are the enhancement talents, and as to be expected, Slater and Valentine win. A lot of brawling, punch kick, nothing too terribly notable here. Not worth going out of your way to see. I'm still surprised at how long Valentine was around here in WCW. I think it's more the history of who he was and trying to get people to pay attention. Slater kicks and pokes and prods at the knee of his opponent. Doesn't get all he wants with it. Gets enough, but hard chop. And again, some basic things there. Valentine manages to get some slams along the way and backbreaker, and ultimately tags off back to Slater. Slater keeps the match slow. Both of these guys running super slow, not to be surprised or anything by that, but punch kick. Eventually Valentine does get the victory for his team with the figure four, not to be outdone there. Go to another enhancement match, Chris Sullivan against the Barbarian. Barbarian getting ready for major push in the fall of this year. Sullivan tries to take the Barbarian down, goes absolutely nowhere with it, actually just sits down on the guy pretty unevenly, and a backdrop suplex, among other things, vertical suplex also by the Barbarian. Barbarian dominant through the entire match, as one would expect someone of his juncture and stature to be. Manages to claw and poke and prod away at his opponent, back fist and other brawling type tactics, hanging suplex, and what would later be known as the Mafia kick. There is a promo that Paul Heyman, and I had missed a small ending to last week's interview. Basically, the tag team champions have promised to give the Dangerous Alliance some future tag team match stuff, as Bobby Eaton and Arn Anderson up next with a tag team match of their own. Eventually, the champions of Williams and Gordy will, in fact, face off against Dangerous Alliance members thanks to the negotiations, according to anybody of Paul Heyman's lawyer. Funny thing is, probably in real life it would have been his father. Larry Zbyszko and Flying Brian Pillman. What a weird team that is, against Eaton and Anderson. Good match, though, as, again, Zbyszko has recently left the Dangerous Alliance after about a 3-month build after the loss at the War Games in May or so. A little bit of debate in the corner as to who is going to start the match, and eventually Eaton starts. Zbyszko, amazing with holds. I think people should study Larry Zbyszko. He can get the most out of anything. Works a body scissors hold into a pinning combination for several minutes here. Is it flashy? No. Is it effective? Yes. Do people pay attention to it? Yes, at the time. Anderson comes in, and I got to grab my phone, so we'll be back momentarily with more right after this. And again, Zbyszko in this particular position is really an enjoyable thing. I know Larry Zbyszko as a babyface isn't everyone's cup of tea. I know they don't necessarily like the slower style, but he is an amazing talent in terms of getting psychology out of things. And again, giving them 20 minutes or whatever it ends up being, and kind of hanging onto the arm, and the story of the Dangerous Alliance, and the transition that Larry has post AWA, and then Eaton and Anderson, which was a phenomenal team. Then you see the link between Pillman and Anderson, and then ultimately the Hollywood Blondes, less than a year later, are with Pillman and Roma, or Anderson and Roma. Just an interesting run, how everything comes together and how everything is good, is well done. Anderson, though, catches Pillman on a second rope dive, gets a near fall, does Pillman. Anderson kind of goes right at him, cinches up on the arm, and for the next several minutes, Anderson does what Arn Anderson does, and that is to stay on the arm. Pillman is able to get a reversal, drags him over from the legs. Remember, the top rope rule has been waived, so Pillman using the top rope is allowed with a high cross, which is just an extra special kind of thing for the moment. Anyway, we see the figure four, and then Pillman gets cut off again in mid-ring. Things continue. I love that Larry holds a fighter stance and then manages to try to do some martial arts level stuff. Puts Eaton up on the top rope and kicks at him like he's trying to soccer kick him. Cool looking stuff for the time. Spinning neckbreaker by Zbyszko. Zbyszko doesn't want to quit on himself, but also realizes he's got to remain aggressive. Takes him over to the corner with Pillman. Got about 10 minutes left, and then we see Anderson locked up with an arm scissors on Pillman because Pillman's arm gets injured mid-match point here. Ultimately, Paul Heyman on the outside, aka Paulie Dangerously, not happy with the way things are going. Divorce court style arm breaker, shoulder breaker type maneuver by Eaton. Eaton goes again for the DDT on the arm, staying on Zbyszko really aggressively, and can't get rid of him quite yet. 4 minutes remaining in the program. Still good pacing. Zbyszko is cut off once again for what feels like the fourth time in the match, but they're telling an awesome story. Eventually, the Dangerous Alliance do end up kind of in a rough space, and there is a stoppage because of the damage to Larry's arm, and that's that. Vader basically says he wants the championship back. He has been cheated, and then we close again with a review of Ron Simmons winning the World Championship just days before. So hopefully you enjoy this. We'll be back with more right after this.